I call this meeting of the Bryan Independent School District to order. Let the record show that a quorum of board members is present and this meeting has been duly called and that notice of this meeting has been posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meeting Act, Texas Government Code Chapter 551. I wish to extend a warm welcome to everyone present. Citizens may make comments about topics relevant to district business. Topics should be limited to 5 minutes. Comments concerning specific students or personnel will be heard in closed session. I ask you to please turn off the sound on any electronic devices, and if you would please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, which is being presented by the Mary Branch Elementary.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to the Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible. We the flag, grand beautiful. Thank you. Letting for class.
Yeah, and we're going to jump right down into the spotlight recognition. We have had a couple of months where either people have been out of town or unable to attend, or we had to go to a video conference call. So we have a number tonight. First up is Elementary School Teacher of the Month for February, I believe. It is here, Principal Sutterfield.
I think it's Kim Beasley's law for February.
Yes.
Second.
Okay. Then we'll. My list is wrong. So let me see. Andrea Alvarado. Do I have on my agenda? Okay. Then we'll jump down to Elementary Teacher of the Month with Principal Becky Ryberg. I believe this is March.
Back there.
Okay.
Good evening, everyone. I am here to introduce Mrs. Whitney Powers, and she has her beautiful baby girl, Jamesley. We call her Jam with her tonight. So I'm going to go ahead and tell you a little bit about our Teacher of the Month for March. Mrs. Powers is a fantastic teacher. She can help any student grow and flourish in their content and confidence when it comes to both academics and social-emotional advancement. She engages students at all levels, hooking and capturing the attention of even the toughest hearts and most stubborn minds. On any given day, if you walk into Mrs. Powers' classroom, you will see kids learning and the teacher teaching. There is never a dull or lost minute to amazing instruction. During the pandemic, she worked with her instructional coach and team members to deliver fun, virtual math games to kids, made constant phone calls and video calls to kids, and kept the rigor of learning up as much as she could. Knowing how much learning all students unexpectedly lost last year, she worked even harder this year to reach all students, both online and in person, forming strong family relationships early and hitting the ground running with focused and targeted instruction that differentiated to the variety of learning styles and abilities of all of her students. At Rayburn, our honors program is a wonderful opportunity for students to join an advanced academics track that requires them to work hard and diligently, even if they have content deficits that may keep them from entry into other programs. This means any student can choose to take an honors class and work to find success. This also means the teachers have to strategically deliver advanced content to students who may not yet be in an advanced level of mastery. In Mrs. Powers' classroom, you would think you were walking into a classroom of math wizards because she elevates student thinking and problem-solving skills to magical heights. Her students are confident in their ability because she pushes them and accepts no excuses. She believes so hard that they can succeed, so they in turn believe it also. They set goals for their achievement progress and celebrate as a math family when they reach these goals. They also come together as a family to make plans for how to reach goals next time if they don't quite do what they thought they would. There is so much progress for all students that kids continue to persevere even when the math gets tough. In addition to what Mrs. Powers does in her classroom, she also serves as the 5th grade math department head. This role requires her to work closely with her team of math teachers and advocate for their needs at the campus level. She is always ready to assist her fellow teachers, even if they aren't math teachers. Her goal is Rayburn's success, and you feel it, even when she is not focused on math. She is positive, happy, optimistic, and extremely driven in her work ethic. Above all, she is kind. She loves her team, her fellow staff, her parents, and students, both past and present, and always honors and promotes her responsibility as an educator. There is no one better than Mrs. Whitney Powers, and this district is amazing because of teachers like her leading our students.
All right, next up we have the January Secondary Teacher of the Month from Rudder High School. Welcome, Principal Layton.
Thank you. This is Shannon Espedia from Rudder High School and her husband Omar. And so Espedia excels at leadership on the Rudder campus. When the district began implementing Schoology, once online learning, began in March, Shannon has volunteered to help any teacher make Schoology more usable and accessible in their classrooms. She researches topics and gives tips to teachers so that they can effectively implement Schoology lessons in their classes. She goes out of her way to help her students understand all the aspects in her graphic design classes. She uses her witty sense of humor to relate to the students and develop relationships that foster a positive learning environment in her classroom. Many students communicate that they love Mrs. Espedia and love to take her classes. She has grown the graphic design department at Rudder and continues to challenge her students to stretch and grow in graphic design. She is always willing to make posters and signs for any clubs or teams that need to advertise for meetings or games. She is committed to growing as a professional as well. She seeks out opportunities to grow in her field. She will be presenting at the TIVA, Texas Industrial Vocational Association, it's actually why we missed in January, their midwinter conference. Once again, showcasing her expertise, and Rudder is blessed to have a talented and committed teacher that is willing to grow the teachers around her.
No.
Oh, sorry.
Are you boxing down? You're the board member.
Okay, your turn. Show off.
And next I would like to welcome up from Stephen F. Austin, the principal there. This is Secondary Teacher of the Month.
Hello, this is Mrs. Brandy Wagner. So SFA Middle School proudly nominates Ms. Brandy Wagner as Teacher of the Month for February. Ms. Wagner was nominated by multiple peers and administrators for this honor due to her passion for teaching, loving her students well, and her above and beyond dedication to support our campus, the Odyssey program, National Junior Honor Society, and the girls' athletics. Brandy is most deserving of Bryan ISD's February Teacher of the Month because she pours her heart and soul into Stephen F. Austin Middle School and the students. Ms. Wagner begins planning during the summer and has the entire year planned before we even return in August. Ms. Wagner teaches 8th grade algebra in our Odyssey program. Brandy is the backbone of our Algebra 1 team and has a natural ability to lead, support, and guide the other team members in lesson design, rigor, and virtual activities. She is also always willing to lend an extra hand or learn a new skill. She works tirelessly to engage and challenge the Odyssey students. On top of the aforementioned, she is also a graduate student, which is a full-time job in and of itself. Every available afternoon, Coach Wagner has a classroom full of students for additional tutoring. This shows her dedication to go above and beyond to help her learners grasp the material. It is pleasing to see students enjoying after-school tutoring. She also communicates with the parents regularly on their child's participation and performance to establish positive relationships at the home. In addition to going above and beyond for her students, Mrs. Wagner also goes above and beyond for her coworkers in SFA. Anytime a teacher needs something, she always offers herself to help. She has helped with implementation plans for math that she doesn't even teach, help enter missing grades when her colleagues are drowning in to-do list items, help students during tutorials that aren't her students, and more. She is the definition of a true team player and servant leader. Not only is Mrs. Wagner an amazing teacher in the classroom, but she is an amazing coach on the court. She devotes so much of her time to coaching our athletes and establishing such meaningful relationships with them to truly meet their needs, most of the time before many of us are even awake. Mrs. Wagner has also taken on an extra assignment as one of our co-sponsors for the National Junior Honor Society. One of the most memorable and touching service projects she spearheads with her NJHS students and SFA faculty is providing Christmas gifts for our families who are in need. This year, we were able to provide gifts to over 150 families. Brandy bleeds Bronco Green and has been an asset to our campus. Year after year, she encompasses and exhibits every aspect of our essential aid. She is one of the hardest working teachers I know and is the epitome of what a Teacher of the Month entails. And she also recently, last Friday, just got nominated and voted on as SFA's Teacher of the Year.
And for the March Secondary Teacher of the Month, I'd like to welcome up Principal Lynn Boobin.
This is Rebecca Nunez, and she was nominated as our March Teacher of the Month, and I'll read her nomination with her. Rebecca Nunez has been a part of the Bryan High team for 15 years. To say she is an asset is an understatement. She's a natural, heartfelt teacher with amazing level of patience. She is truly an angel. Rebecca utilizes best practices and genuine care to meet the needs of all of her students. She builds authentic relationships with them while crafting an encouraging learning environment with differentiated instruction, including varying levels of abilities. The student population she works with every day struggles with learning difficulties and significant gaps in math skills. Rebecca's students feel safe and trusting of each other and her and do not fear failure. Rather, they view everything as a learning opportunity. In observing her classes, it is evident that the students support each other in the learning process and collaborate to lift all to a level of success. This is a direct result of the care and attention she pays to her lesson planning and classroom environment. Our resource algebra data has shown marked improvements with her at the helm. Rebecca helps her students grow as math learners and individuals. We are sincerely grateful to have her on our team and admire the exceptional work she does at Bryan High School. Rebecca.
Next up at this time, we do not have any citizens' comments, so we'll move directly down into item 5, information item 5A, update on summer programs and student support.
Good evening. Thank you for this evening. We wanted to bring you an update about something I think that's on everyone's mind. How are we responding to the needs of students academically as a result of the pandemic? And so I have a team with me because there isn't a single person who does this alone. This is the work of a team between central office, campuses, parents, and also community resources. But I wanted to give you kind of the spectrum of supports that have happened for academic needs of students to help with any response to the pandemic and also unfinished learning. So first, the story doesn't begin with what's coming up for summer. The story begins with what did we do last summer to get ready for when kids walk through the door. Because we knew coming in, like most other districts, that students were going to come with some significant learning gaps as a result of the pandemic from the spring semester. And so we've kind of categorized what's happened in terms of the different categories of support into our presentation this evening. We're going to talk first about curriculum-embedded supports, the response that we needed to start the year, kind of thinking about what happened last spring and blending it in. We're going to talk about what we did this fall and continue to do this spring with in-class tutoring and on-campus support. We're going to talk to you about what high school opportunities are available right now and are being taken advantage of right now for credit recovery and acceleration. And then we're going to talk about the summer and what our plans are for the summer for the expansion of summer programs, including some new and different things with power camps. So let me start real quickly with something that should look a little familiar to you. Throughout this school year, the board has asked for presentations from curriculum instruction, teaching and learning, a number of departments, so that you understand and hear more about the work of those teams and their support to campuses and teachers. And so you might remember a few of these slides, and if not, you're going to see one of them later on tonight anyway, when you're given the mathematics and science update for grades 5 through 8. But it was very purposeful planning that took place in the summer of last year, as the curriculum team looked at what were the key standards and learning skills that maybe needed to be revisited, checked, and reinforced this school year. They redid parts of the scope and sequence and the curriculum, and they embedded those supports directly into the next grade level so that the scaffolding took place and the check for understanding took place early on. So before we build on that knowledge, do we have the foundational knowledge on which to build? And so the team was very purposeful in that. They're going to speak to that again this evening. They also produced a number of video resources, again knowing that some students were going to be at home, some on campus, and at any given moment some student may need to quarantine and move to an online environment. We wanted to make sure there were a variety of videos that teachers could utilize and drop into those Schoology courses that were directly standards aligned and in with the scope and sequence that were ready for them to immediately use. So there was a great deal of time and effort spent on preparing those resources and refining, redesignating our resources. For example, the new English language arts adoption with HMH comes with a wealth of digital resources. So the team worked with the company and got all of those transferred over into Schoology. Again, so a teacher could pick them up and drop them into the course rather than creating everything from scratch. So a lot of that work took place over the summer and then obviously into August and September. But I think that that is one of the best things that our team has done proactively, knowing there were going to be needs for students all along the way. The next piece is something that we actually brought to the board last fall and discussed in another presentation, but it's how are we going to help teachers manage a foot in both worlds. At that time, it was more of a need in terms of the number of students selecting an online setting or an on-campus setting. And so how are we going to do that? And so the district, with Dr. Whitbeck's approval, committed up to $600,000 of additional funds to campuses to hire part-time tutors, retired teachers, and other staff to be on campus to help out in those classrooms, to help run a small group in an elementary classroom. The curriculum instruction team, for example, produced training for those people so they knew what those intervention programs looked like and they could effectively implement them for the teacher, which saved the teacher time, but also gave the kids more personalized learning experiences. To date, that number continues to climb. That number of dollars spent on supporting teachers and students during the school day. And some of it actually did transpire after school. For example, MC Harris had a need for teachers to work and check on kids outside of the school day. And so we worked a little bit differently with that setting, knowing that they needed more flexible hours to be able to help support those kids directly. But I would say that that number continues to climb. I got a request today for additional funding for a campus. They're seeing such success with that helping students, and they're hitting their mark on, I might not have enough to cover it. Thankfully, because of the work of our finance team and working on getting some of this stuff coded to some of those emergency funds, although I know not all of it actually came to us in terms of the state holding some of it back, but what did come to us, we're able to loosen and take care of those kind of requests that most directly impact students, so we're quite pleased with that. And then the next piece deals with something that's happening right now, and for this I asked Donna Willett to come and give us a little bit of a summary.
Thank you. Dr. Ibarra has talked about a lot of the things that were put in place, but there were still more things that were needed, and we started with that focus at the high school. For several years we have done grade repair. Grade repair is 6 weeks interventions, and so we're handling that in the moment, rather than waiting till the end of semester for whatever reason when a student's not successful. So we really ramped up those 6 weeks interventions, those 6 weeks courses, just to earn that credits. As we moved through the fall and then the start of the spring, we made great progress with those 6 weeks interventions, but realized we still needed more. How can we support and earn credits to get kids to graduation? So Kristen Besaw, Laura Woolridge, and myself, we started kind of brainstorming. We reached out to campus principals, and we ended up with a program we're calling Summer School Now. It is kind of a new version of something we've been doing for years. We've called it Night School, and it was traditionally for seniors who were behind a little bit in credits. Well, we've expanded that. Yes, when we started Summer School Now, we still started with those seniors that need credits to regraduation, but then our next step was to pull in those first-year 9th graders. Our goal is for all of our 9th graders to be 10th graders when they walk back in the door in August. And then we slowly transitioned in the students that are 10th and 11th graders. We started this in late February. Campuses hire teachers for those to monitor those students. We said that any one teacher could monitor up to 30 kids. So the campuses hired those teachers. We trained them on EDGE and the monitoring tool, and they've begun working with these students. Some of the students are doing it online at home. Some of them are staying after school and doing it in the building, and some are staying on Mondays and then working at home on Tuesdays. Since we started this in late February, we've gained about 116 half credits, and we have really positive thoughts that that's going to continue. And so that kind of our focus has been high school, and now we're starting to move down a little. We're going to start working on that intermediate and middle school. Lauren trained all of the middle school intervention teachers last week. Davila started, they put in a Saturday school and started working with those 6 weeks grade repairs for those middle school courses on Saturday. SFA starts this Wednesday, and so we're really hoping to really you're positive and hoping that we see some growth and progress on those students at those next levels as we move this program down.
One more thing before we move on to the next piece here. Part of this, at any given moment, any kid could need something like this, right? There could be a family circumstance, certainly there's a health circumstance, and they could have been at home for a period of weeks, and some things could have been out of their control in terms of their ability to be on site or be engaged. And so what's nice about the system that Donna and the team have developed, it fits all learners, all situations, and gets them back on track without any delay. It fixes the gaps now versus waiting till summer to figure out what does each child need. So really pleased with the proactive approach again of that team. So the next section, Ms. Besaw, who is the master of ceremony, so to speak, for all things summer programs, I've asked her to come and speak as well. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. So I want to start by saying that these next 3 slides are, you're going to see what we've typically offered in summer school. However, the difference is the number of students that we will be increasing to target in order to make sure that we take care of any unfinished learning that's happened. So as Dr. Ibarra and as Ms. Willett talked about all those opportunities, we still want to make sure that we're staffed appropriately in case we have those students who need more. So we'll start with our special populations programs. This is our pre-kindergarten and kindergarten bilingual summer school for our English learners. That will be held throughout the month of June at Henderson, along with our federally funded migrant program. That is for our K through 8 students who are migrants and who need some additional help in shoring up their academic skills. And then the final special population will be our extended school year program for our special education students who may regress over the summer. That's an ARD decision based on that student's IEP, but we really feel like with these 3 programs, you can see in 2019 we had fairly robust attendance. We are staffed in case we have more parents who take us up on these opportunities. We want to make sure that we're ready. And then at K through 8, again, you can see in 2019, those were the numbers of students who we have participate in these programs. And then 2021, these are our student seats that we are currently almost staffed for, but we're working on staffing for students. So at the K through 8 level, we really focus on our foundational reading and math skills and making sure that we're filling in any of those holes and gaps. We want our students to leave summer school feeling confident, feeling like they can do it, and that they're ready for the next school year. That's very important to us. And so as we look at summer school expansion, that's the thought that's been in our mind. At K4, you will note, usually we have 4 summer school campuses, and this year we will have 6. Again, to cover that additional need that may arise from students as we help with that unfinished learning.
And to complement that, just so you're clear, the numbers there are available seats because we've expanded who's able to come to the larger 3-week session. Just again, knowing that there's going to be students who do have some unfinished learning, and maybe they're on track to be promoted the next year, but the campus still recommends summer school attendance to ensure they're on the right foot to enter the next grade level.
And then at our high school, so last year, necessity forced us to sort of flip our high school credit recovery and credit advancement offering. And so last year, we offered all credit recovery and credit advancement free of charge for our students. We also offered that online for students. And we saw that program and the number of students who repaired credits pretty much doubled from the previous year. So we're going to continue with what we know already works. We're going to continue to offer students those online choices. Students may work during the day throughout the summer. They may have childcare responsibilities. There's all kinds of things, but we want to make sure that at Bryan ISD we're doing our part so that they can learn and either catch up or get ahead. Because we know if they get ahead, that will perhaps open up that slot in their schedule for them to be able to take a career tech class or a fine arts class or something that they might consider fun and that they would really like to take and become further connected to the school. And then finally, we have our end of course test acceleration that Dr. Ibarra and I come to you with the results of that every October, November. But we will continue to offer that test acceleration in order to help students prepare to take the end of course test retest that happens at the end of June. So we're really excited about the increased opportunities we're going to be able to afford our students.
So new and different this year for summer school curriculum and resources. One thing, our curriculum and instruction team does a tremendous job. They actually produce all of the curriculum and instructional materials for the summer school teachers that's ready for them, that they can immediately turn around and into the classroom. State of Texas has recently expanded its resources made available as a response to COVID. They have an acronym for it. I won't go through all of it, but it's essentially called CRIMSI, and it's basically COVID Response and Intervention Resources. And as part of that, Texas Home Learning, which is a TEA program, provides a number of resources that we can utilize specifically for summer school that are free of charge. And so the team is taking what we have done traditionally for summer school in terms of curriculum development, looking at the standards that were most missed during the school year that need reinforcement, but then also looking at what those resources are at the Texas Home Learning site and embedding those in our summer school program. Many of them are digital in nature, meaning it's like a software program or something like that, and that our students could try and utilize and pilot this summer to see how we like it, how the teachers like it, and how our students respond to it. So new and different this year, they're going to be blending those two resources together. The district created and the state provided are going to come together this summer to support students. And new and different for the month of July are power camps. This is something that's shorter in duration, but very, very focused. It's for any student. It is free of charge. It's for students in various grade levels, starting down to kinder, all the way through pre-algebra, 8th grade, and even higher if an AP teacher wants to offer one. But it's a 4-day session, and it actually could be repeated over the 3 weeks that are offered. But they're part days for students to basically shore up and be ready to walk in the door in August in that next grade level, that next subject. Algebra 1 is on there, and I always thought my own son who finished algebra in the spring of last year, his teacher's done a tremendous job of building in those supports this fall for all of the students who missed a little bit of that Algebra 1 class and helping it kind of wrap through. But any other student who's entering algebra next year, it would be very beneficial for them to spend just a few short days shoring up the foundational skills to be ready for Algebra 1. Algebra 1 is a critical course for high school success and post-secondary success. And so we want to make sure every student has those opportunities. We're seeing already some interest in the dual language power camps. We think about those students in dual language who missed out on opportunities to speak out loud in the second language and to participate as they're learning both languages. They need that time to speak, discuss, and to work with their teacher. And so this would afford them a similar opportunity to be ready for that next grade level. So more information on this is coming. Right now we're seeking teachers who are interested, and Kristen, again, has done a fantastic job of garnering support and interest from teachers, and we have many that are interested. So those will be during the month of July, just before school starts. Still gives teachers a break before they come and back for PD in the beginning of August, but also allows parents another opportunity. I think one of the key messages is that for all of our parents, we want to make sure you have opportunities this summer. So if you feel like your student needs and would benefit from any type of support from our district, we want to make sure you know what those opportunities are and that we're providing access to them for you. So in general, those are our big categories of support. Again, going back to the summer of last year, flowing through this year, and certainly into next year. Many of these will continue in the coming year, and I'm sure be improved and intensified as we progress. But it's not a one solution, it's a multi-tiered solution to support students as you would expect.
Kristen. Okay. So in terms of the timeline, because you may get lots of questions in the community, especially I see QCX is here, so maybe after they run something. So just want you to be aware right now we are gathering those teacher applications, as Dr. Ibarra said. And once we have those, we're able to look at teacher interest, and we'll be able to start building that catalog of the power camps that we will offer. We'll get that finalized, and then that first week in May, families will receive the notification about the learning options, as Dr. Ibarra said, the learning options for their student. Every student will have the opportunity for something. We'll do online registration, just as we did this past summer when necessity forced us to move away from paper, and that was a very good thing. So we'll have online registration. We'll look for that to be due back from parents by May 19th so we can finalize our planning. Really will need, as much as possible, we show grace, but really will need that interest and that registration so that we're fully prepared to accommodate our learners.
What questions can we answer for you?
I have. One, for families that may not know or understand the online registration, are we assuming that everybody, I mean, will they get help? Will they be able to fill out a paper registration?
So what we kind of did last summer that I think will carry over is we had counselors helping, front office staff helping, where they had that link. So if a parent called, like teachers had the link as well. So we did have teachers fill out registration for families and things of that nature. So I'm glad you brought that up because you're right, it's changed.
My next question is, I know we just took benchmarks, and we'll be using that. I mean, STAR is just too late. So will our benchmark scores have a whole lot to do with coming into your program?
To a certain extent, yes. They're indicative of the student's performance typically in the class as well. Certainly, teacher grades, as per board policy, are a piece of that, but so is the STAR assessment. We also know that we have students online and we have students on campus, and there's a little bit of a difference there for some of those kiddos. But all of that will play into the campus committee's decision on their recommendations for summer learning.
Will we get the STAR results back in time for some of those?
Those should actually get expedited this year as we move to online testing of STAR for all students. And again, it's a mandate kind of coming from TEA, but this year it affords us the perfect opportunity because of the board's decision to move forward with students with Chromebooks. We're able to do that this year, and that will help expedite those scores returning to the district. It'll still be a little later, some of it takes a little longer to score, but we will certainly get the EOCs back sooner than the other test scores. Good question. Yes, sir.
My first question is related to Ruthie's. I think that I guess what I'm not real clear on, and y'all probably are pretty clear on, is where are we? What kind of hurdles do we have here? How far behind are some of the students? And of course, it looks to me like you're trying to do everything you can think of to bridge those gaps, as you say. But if you were going to try to tell us a little bit about where you think the students are versus where you would have expected them to be in a normal, without a COVID situation, where are we? Do you have any idea? I guess you have something.
Quantifying the impact of the pandemic academically is a struggle. But what I can tell you is that there's unfinished learning, and it's quite evident. There are reading and performance levels that aren't where we would recommend they be right now for almost every grade level. And the students have a lot of growth to maintain or to gain. Additionally, it's been more complex because of the nature of some students going home on quarantine or being online for 6 weeks per family decision, or on campus but not able to attend due to health reasons. That has set further behind the progress and the growth we would have liked to have seen. I will say there are a number of students that are right on track. The full impact, until we get an accurate assessment on all students, is going to be difficult to quantify in that measure. But one of the things we're doing to help with that, the board, as you all know, approved the purchase of NWEA's MAP program, right? That was for the next school year to begin a beginning of the year MAP test and an end of the year MAP test. Well, the company graciously has given us for free this spring to go ahead and administer the MAP test to our students. That would be a tremendous benefit to really understanding the academic attainment and what achievement level students are right now. We won't get growth right now because we don't have a prior data point to pull from, but we will get a true rendering of where they are academically for grade level by subject for those grades and subjects. That will be very helpful. Certainly the STAR assessment will also be helpful in helping us determine where our students are. When I look at benchmark scores right now, they're slightly lower than where they were at this time last year, which I would expect to see. It's also tough to say because we didn't get through all of the spring benchmarks last year. And so we don't necessarily have a last year measure to compare to. Have a prior year measure though, so we start to get kind of removed when we see where they are. I will say in general, Most students have some form of unfinished learning. They do. Some teachers have been able to remediate a majority of their students in the classroom and to support them during the classroom time that they have available, especially with the additional supports of tutoring and on-site support. But some students need more.
I'm certainly would never intend to disparage any of our parents and grandparents, but I also have always been frustrated about sometimes we offer things, even in the past.
Sure.
In the summer, we don't have a lot of the kids that need it. They're not getting it. So, and it sounded like, and again, I'm just trying to get my hands around this, but you're talking about what kind of interest is shown and which parents feel like their kids need it. And I was thinking, I bet there are a fair number, for one reason or another, that parents are not necessarily going to be motivating their students, their kids to do this. So, and I know there's only so much y'all can do, but what have y'all given any thought to, and this may be a dumb question, but reaching out and making sure the parents, guardians, grandparents know your child really needs to be in this, not, in other words, not waiting for them to say, yes, I'm enrolling my child, but making sure they understand the need.
Yes, sir, that's part of, the board revised the policy for promotion criteria last year, as you well know. Part of that process involves a committee at the campus level working with the family and the student so that it's clear that summer school opportunities are a requirement for your child to be promoted. And that's part of that decision, that conversation, and hopefully that registration at the same time to attend. But that may be the right answer for kiddos who have a lot of unfinished learning to recoup during this time. It may very well be the option, but it certainly shouldn't happen without a consultation from the campus with the parent. I agree.
It just seems like that could take a great deal of time and effort to try to go to some of these folks and I guess persuade them to do this, because I guess we never have gotten to a situation where attendance in summer school is mandatory like it is during the regular school year. That's still the case, isn't it? That it's not.
For TEA, yes, it's not an attendance taking day. So what it would mean for the student would be if they were needing summer school for promotion, then they would not be promoted. And I know that Dr. Merrill and Mrs. Goodman and school leadership have been meeting with parents whose children have been struggling academically and are coming back on campus to learn and listening to those stories. And certainly there are some that, as you described, maybe they're not comfortable coming on campus yet for any given personal family reason, but their child has unfinished learning and will need to do something to get them caught up.
Each of the campuses looked at their data, looked at all the data, and sent out basically worksheets and communication to the parents, and encouraging them and asking them to come back. And if they did not, then we all contacted, Crystal and I contacted, and had multiple meetings. In fact, I've got, Carmen just added about 6 more to the calendar for tomorrow and the next day. So we spent probably, Crystal, 15, 20, 30 minutes with each one, talking through situations that the campuses have done already, and just working through plans, trying to figure out exactly what's the best plan. And each one of them is so different. This has exposed and created such opportunities. And so they've all been wonderful conversations. Parents are concerned. They know what's going on. They talk to campuses. They're very familiar. Donna and her team have done a phenomenal job. The counselors have really reaching out, making sure that the parents are current on what's happening. In some cases, we brought them back and they've been incredibly successful. In other cases, it hasn't. And so even today I was at truancy court. So sometimes you just have to work your angles to eventually try to help everybody make their decisions so that they can find their way back to success. And so we've talked retention, we've talked summer school. In fact, with about 20 students today from Bryan High, we talked about summer school. It's completely free, and Judge Hill really did a good job of trying to do that. So it's really a layered effect. It takes everybody to try to do it. But Donna and her team they're on the campus are the ones that are really having those difficult conversations and making sure the parents are aware as well as the teachers. So it's been fun. I mean, it's been good. It's enlightening. I'll tell you that too. It's very enlightening to work with some of these parents, and what they're going through is just, some of them is really, really difficult. And they don't quite know which way's up. In some situations, they don't know how to turn. And so we've been encouraged but it just takes time.
There's only so much y'all can do, and I apologize for this. I'm just feeling like I just know it's just inevitable that there's going to be some that are hard.
It's a burden, I think, that we all feel.
You know, it is amazing to have, quote, central office personnel, that you guys are taking the time and going down in the trenches, because oftentimes the principals and the counselors and the assistant principals don't have this kind of time. And to know that you guys are going in and meeting with the parents in that central office, I say that, I mean, I don't know another word for it, everybody knows, you know, central office personnel. You guys are taking up the slack for what the administrators on those campuses would love to be doing, but just don't have the time to do that and everything else. So thank you so much. I mean, that's why I think David remembers that when we didn't have time to do all that, because the people that were asked to do it were also the people that had every other job on that campus to do. And so, thank you for making all that happen. And you know why you're enjoying it, Dr. Merrill? Because you're back, it's like you're back in the classroom. You're back in the principal and you're getting, you know,
Yes,
do
ma'am.
what you do.
You're exactly right.
Yeah.
So Bobby,
Yes, ma'am.
in July, those power camps were for all grade levels, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Did we look at the, because like David said, I worry about those kids that need to be there. Did we look at the transportation, or was that not feasible? I'm not saying like we normally do the route, but
Sure.
the bus will be on this corner, and if you live in this neighborhood, you catch it on this corner. Because I worry about those that might need to be there. The transportation might be an issue.
So for June, those 3 weeks of summer school and summer programs, transportation is provided. It's the same kids for all 3 weeks. The struggle with July, we're still working through that. Right now, it's going to be a challenge to offer transportation, even to community centers along the way, because they still have to have staff there. If there's a child, a younger child in particular, we need to ensure that they're picked up. And we can't just let them off the bus and let them walk around. So that is going to be a struggle, especially given the changing nature of each week as a different group of kids from all over the district to the locations. So that part's still a struggle. Right now, it's looking as though there would not be transportation provided in July, but I won't say it's off the table. It's something we're still investigating.
Because I worry about the kids, the parents having to be to work at 5 or 6 o'clock, and that child needs to be there, and they're at home all day because they don't have a ride.
Yes, ma'am. The drop-off in the morning will be before work begins, but it's a midday pickup. We tried to partner around lunchtime, hoping the parents could leave on their lunch break to come pick up their child or arrange with neighbors. Again, I think we're going to try and look at each kid's case and see what we can accommodate, but with the changing, again, every group is different each week, and we may have lots of students who sign up for Power Camp, but choose not to attend when it actually comes to the day. You never know. And so that could be a struggle in producing those transportation routes as well. Our biggest concern is the safety of little kiddos if we did community pickups and drop-offs. Ensuring that there was somebody there to pick them up.
I just want to say thank you to you and your team for working so hard to ensure breadth and depth and, you know, credit recovery to acceleration to all the different things that our kids might need. It makes me proud to be part of Bryan ISD.
Thank you, Dr. Horn. They're a great team. They've worked hard. They truly care what they can do to help kids.
And honestly, as you presented it as a question, as I would have questions, then you answer it. Good job.
Mission complete. I feel good then. Thank you.
Totally commendable for the team. But not really a question, I guess, but what did participation look like for the summer school now? Because that's definitely needed because of that unfinished learning.
Yes, ma'am. Right now, Bryan High has, I believe, 4 teachers. Where's Lauren? Bryan High. Lauren is our Edgenuity queen, and so she has exactly how many teachers from each campus and how many students are participating right now.
So for summer school now at Bryan High and Rudder, we have about 15 to 20 teachers working with students right now.
And our enrollment hovers around 250 students to 300 students enrolled in summer school now. At this time.
They weren't forced into summer school now because of this.
That is correct.
They were strongly encouraged, but they still got to want to do it.
We had to give them a why speech. Why?
Yeah, they also have some nice little perks in the event that they come and complete.
That is correct. That is correct. The counselors did a great job meeting with students individually to encourage them to take advantage of this opportunity.
Don't we feed them too?
Say that again?
Don't we feed breakfast and or lunch in
Right.
the summers?
For summer.
For summer school, yes, but for the summer school now, right now,
Oh, okay,
it's in the evenings. It's from, high schools get out at 4:05, it's from 4:15 to 6 o'clock. They may be at school, they may be at home, and I would say yes, Bryan High Rudder have a few snacks there just in case those kids need something. If that gets them to finish a unit, we're all about that.
And many of these students that are in summer school now, in the event that they complete their credit, these are students that possibly would have had to go to summer school.
Yes, ma'am.
Or in danger of not walking.
That is correct. One of the amazing opportunities that summer school now affords students is they don't have to wait to recover credits for courses that they're currently enrolled in. So for instance, a student might be in English 3. They failed English 3 in the fall. Typically, they wouldn't get to recover English 3 from the fall until that summer. But now, we're able to step in before summer gets here to provide English 3A credit recovery while they're still sitting in English 3B, their normal classroom with their normal teachers, so that hopefully by the end of that semester, they will have their full entire credit of English 3 and not just a half credit lingering here and there. We're trying to wrap up their full credit so they can move on successfully to the next course and not have to attend summer school for that subject area.
And this is the first time you guys have rolled this out, summer school now?
Yes, ma'am. Prior, we just did it with seniors that were in needed credits to be able to participate in May graduation. And so it's now just opened it up to the rest of the high school students.
Something that will likely continue.
Well, I hope that we tell other districts about this idea. I don't know where we got the idea. Maybe we got it from someone else. But it's a great.
I got it from Goose Creek ISD.
Are students from other districts not on the normal stuff, but are they still going to be able to come in for summer school and do some advanced, can they still take advanced courses in the summer?
So last year, we did not open enrollment to others in the community because of the Edgenuity online program, because we weren't face-to-face in person and all those things. We haven't worked out the details of what that might look like, but I'm sure if we can, if we're able to do that, then we will for a fee, I guess.
But I think the priority has to be our children.
Yes.
And the concept that I just want to praise the team for, Kristen and her leadership, Lauren, all of you, is that, this concept that has been the umbrella that they've all talked through is unfinished learning. And the unfinished learning during a pandemic can be for the brightest child in the class. It can be for anybody who maybe had a hardship in their home. It doesn't always mean that they were behind before this virus hit our world. And so I think that we have to look at children for where they are. And it may just be a fun week of a power camp that gets me fired up and gets some gaps filled in algebra before I go back to school. Or it may be that I need 3 weeks, or that I need to be up there now. And I love Lauren's example of English 3, because that student that is now a junior can leave with going into their senior year not feeling behind, not feeling like a failure, but instead feeling caught up and ready and successful going forward. I mean, these are the concepts behind the whole plan. And so I think that mental, psychological piece to this is you're not a failure. You just didn't finish some things. There's a big difference.
I would anticipate this could have potentially a very positive impact on retention and reducing dropouts.
We are very hopeful for that as well. Yes, ma'am.
But the flip side, and I also want to praise Mrs. Goodman and Brian Merrill, as you did, Ms. Waller, but taking on that responsibility of those personal conferences with parents. And, as I would listen to some of their stories, and there's way too many for them to share, all of them, but, it ranges from, hardship to simply, we're just not coming. And so we've got to hear them where they are, but we've also got to say, well, there are consequences for choices that you make. You have choices. And if you choose to not engage, that doesn't mean that you're just going to get scooted down the road. It means that you're going to have to finish at some point. So what will that look like? And so I think that this is where we have the balance of compassion and yet also personal responsibility, because we do them no favors to push them forward when they're not prepared. So I think that that's been our mantra from the beginning, is that mindset of listening, responding, but also holding people accountable.
People often ask me, what does normal look like, right? What does return to normal look like? And I was probably very early to jump on and say we don't know what normal is yet, right? And I think one thing that impresses me a lot with this team is that y'all have expanded what was normal. I mean, so many programs that I hear about, we already had some fashion in play. It was either to a targeted group that we simply expanded, but I do think that kind of a return to normal. What I hope, and y'all have to help us out here, make sure that we can continue this. But if it works now, there's still going to be a need 5 years from now for the same, hopefully eventually we'll get it out, but there's always going to be somebody that has that same type of challenge in their life. And hopefully one of the lessons that we as educators can learn out of this is we can catch kids up during that same year that they're, that same semester that they're taking English too. And that it's not just, and that it can be a crisis for anything. For any reason that puts somebody behind. And so that whole level of intervention, I think is I commend the team, and I, again, just not to work the teachers to death. I think there's a happy balance there, obviously, but at the same time, I think this is definitely a win moving forward.
That when Kristen hires some of those teachers, they're going to go, she said, well, why'd you apply? Well, I'm not through with them. I'm not finished, and they're coming to summer, and it's got to be me that works with them, so.
Well, I have to really give a lot of credit to our teachers, because I think this has been a difficult time for all of them, and they've done extraordinary things with their students this year. And so I was apprehensive. Will they want to teach summer school? Will they want to do power camps? And the answer is yes. I mean, those seats are pretty much staffed. I mean, there may be one or two positions here or there. So can't say enough about our teachers who just continually go the extra mile.
We go to a lot of training and hear a lot of things other districts are doing. And while we're sitting there, we're always wondering, all the great things we're doing at Bryan ISD, why aren't we presenting at some of these trainings? And so I thought about Lauren. She needs to go to one of those trainings.
Hey, put her on the road.
About that summer school
on the road show.
That she has.
She does a great job.
Absolutely. Oh, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
And next up we have 5 through 8 math science.
So as the team's coming up, this is a continuation in the series. The other sessions you've already had, the elementary versions of ELA, social studies, science, and mathematics. And so now we're moving the grade level range to include grades 5 through 8. So I'll turn it over to Dr. Whittingham.
Thank you. We're excited tonight to present to you our 5 through 8 math and science. I have a fabulous team that I work with, some members of the CNI team who work tirelessly to update our curriculum and make certain that it's aligned and that it's updated and it has resources that are user-friendly for our teachers. So today we have Mary Russ, who is our elementary math coordinator. We have Lauren Woolrich, who's our secondary math coordinator, and Debbie Richards, who's our science coordinator and our assistant director for secondary. So Mary?
So I'm back. I saw you recently, and mine overlaps. I do math through 6th grade. So I want to start with letting you know that we, as last time I spoke about, we have some core beliefs in math about teaching and learning. And I'm just going to read our core belief for you, but it's all students are capable of success and should grow in their mathematical knowledge and skills each year. That's not only a belief, but it's a passion of ours. We believe this can happen through planning. Our instructional coaches are pivotal in planning with teachers and helping them with the delivery in the classroom. As you all know, the teacher makes the difference in the student's world, and the delivery is just all-encompassing to whether that child masters the content or not. We also believe that assessment daily to check for mastery and understanding is a critical piece for a child's learning. We do these through, we have instructional focuses to make these happen. Last time I talked to you about a gradual release that our teachers use. It's the I do, we do, you do, where students are involved in all those phases. We also dive into problem solving. In 5th through 6th grade, 5th through 8th grade, these are really, really important for students. They really come to life for students then. Even though we start those in kindergarten and work with them up, they really come to life for students and make connections there. Blended learning is another instructional focus, and I just want to take a moment to say this would not happen without you all in this room. So thank you, hats off to you for making that possible. You help to enable every student 5th through 12th grade, 5th through high school, to have a computer. So that enables us to have success with blended learning. And that's pivotal, especially during these times. It's a critical need for us. A small group instruction is another instructional focus for us. We believe strongly that makes a difference for every student. Then we have our response to COVID. So I just want to start here by saying COVID, it has some dirty words attached to it sometimes, but for us, it has offered us some creativity. So I'm going to start with a little video to let you see some creativity among our students as well. I'm going to start with a little video.
Whatever it's worth, it's work related.
Hi, Mrs. Laura, and today, this is about me, and this is what I got. This is the answer I got. The answer is 10. Hope you have a great day, and this is the second time I made a video for you. Bye, Mrs. Laura.
So when you get videos like that from students where we've allowed them to be at home and learning, and they have the technology there that's provided and has enabled them to also participate in the learning as well. And so as you can see, she's a happy little person that is really excited about turning that into a teacher, and she's creative in the ways that she's done that. We did begin our school year by wrapping in some unfinished learning from the prior semester. We also have embedded in our scope and sequence, we tweaked that up to embed the unfinished learning there. As far as pacing, we had to work and maneuver some to make sure that unfinished business was included in that. And then, of course, that our curriculum reflects. Not only is it wrapped in through pacing, but it's also at that current time where students kind of get a scaffolded look. So what that might look like is, if you have a 5th grade student, then what happens is we've actually made some connections for them by scaffolding in some 4th grade items. And we work with the teacher so that she understands we're not truly teaching 4th grade, but we're just dipping down and scaffolding some learning for a student so they can tap into prior learning and complete that unfinished business and then just smoothly transition to 5th grade.
All right. start off by thanking the board for making sure that mathematics education in Bryan ISD is funded so incredibly well. Our instructional coaches play a pivotal role in allowing our curriculum instruction team to make things happen in the classroom. Our instructional coaches are heavily involved in the professional development that our teachers receive and embed in their classrooms. So we thank you for continuing to fund our instructional coaches. They're our little miracle workers, for sure, so we can't thank you enough for those. And then also our classroom-ready resources. Our instructional coaches played a huge role in creating classroom-ready resources for our students. Some of that included taking what we used to do on paper and transforming it into online exercises for students. But it also includes things like Imagine Math. The board has been wonderful in funding Imagine Math for many years in our district, and the reason why Imagine Math is so powerful in the classroom is because it allows small group instruction to happen. Our teachers are able to work with smaller groups of students in grades 5 through 8 because Imagine Math provides individualized instruction that meets that student's need in the math classroom in ways that we can't do whole group. It's totally personalized to that student, and that's a wonderful thing. The next thing is starting in 7th grade, we switched to calculators. Okay? So we have an inspired graphing calculator technology, which has, again, leveraged the amount of information and data we are allowed to collect on students. Our students love this new feature in the classroom, and it couldn't have happened without your support, so we thank you very much for that. And now Ms. Debbie Richards.
All right, I'm going to talk a little bit about science. It's one of the things I love to talk about. So I want to show some of the things are redundant in that we've had to do a revision of our scope and sequence and adjust our curriculum to accommodate any unfinished learning that we've come across. We also had to target some very specific supporting standards because we have a cumulative test. Things can be tested out of one grade level in the next grade level as a standalone item. So we had to be really careful and pick up any supporting standards that really occurred during the 5th or 6 weeks last year and move them to where they are in conjunction with any standards that are related to them in the preceding grade level. We also had to adjust our common labs. We have a set of lab activities that we want all of our students to experience, and so we had to reach down and make sure that the skills that were covered in those labs are then included in the next grade level. So we had to make adjustments, just like math. We have diversity in science. Once we get to this grade level, once we get to 5th grade, all science takes on a little bit different choices. We have an advanced science strand where we start with honors science in 5th grade, and it then feeds into the PAP program, which ultimately should prepare our students to do well in our advanced placement classes. We also have our Inquire strand. Those students take 3 years of science in 2 years, and they are then eligible to take biology as an 8th grader so they can garner high school credit before they leave middle school. In our Odyssey program, we have the same compression. It's not exactly the same sequence of compression, but we have a similar compression where they finish 3 years, the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade courses in 2 years, and then they are taking physics in 8th grade. So I just want to take a moment and say thank you for supporting us in that little endeavor. When we proposed that, you agreed to let us try the physics first curriculum in our 8th grade course, and I could not be more pleased. Every time I go there, I literally see kids doing science hands-on, and you'll hear them go, oh, when they see it and experience. They're just so excited to do the physics at that level, and so I do appreciate your support for that. So those are basically our 3 strands. From 5th grade through 8th grade, we do have science foundational, sort of philosophical approaches to our program, where we use the 5E instructional model, that traditional engage, explore, explain, elaborate, and evaluate as we design units of study as well as individual lessons. We do want our science course to be hands-on and offer our students experiences with scientific phenomena. The other 2 are a little less tangible, and that is that we want to promote curiosity. That's one of the things that we want to make sure that we hold on to. Let our kids ask questions, and we don't have to know all the answers, but we can encourage them to ask those why and what-if questions. And then also to value data as a consumer in our society, to know that you need to be able to interpret data well so that you don't get misled by inappropriate data. And so those are sort of our foundations in science. And then, of course, laboratory makes up a component, a fairly large component of what we try to accomplish. We did have to do a little adjusting during COVID restrictions, so that we had to come up with a way to actually get our kids' hands on things and then also still be safe. So we developed this sanitize, touch, sanitize method of going to lab and moving equipment from one place to the other to try to keep them and our teachers safe. And in that very center, there's a little video there that Matt's going to play. And before he clicks that, though, I want you to know what this child has been assigned to do in our lab activity is to design a homopolar motor that can move a low ballerina wire. And so I just want you to hear her reaction when I say that they enjoy science and want to foster that. Okay, now, go back and play the video. Yeah, right there. Right there. It's like really close, it's spinning, she made her wire spin. So she's one of those students who didn't think she could do that. She had a wire around the battery and the wire's not touching the battery. She had to design a way to make it spin without it making contact. So just to hear them just feel the success of getting to do hands-on exploration is important to us, and we want to try to keep that. And then there's another video there, but we won't watch it right now. But it shows you another design where a student has made her own design on how to make something move. And so we do try to give them experiential events in our classrooms as much as possible. Right now, one of the core themes that we're working on teachers with in science in grades 5 through 8 is to develop CER, or have our students make a claim, give the evidence, and support their reasoning. Rather than just answering a question, we're working with the teachers and our instructional coaches are trying to encourage the use of CER, where they make a claim and they give you the data to back it up, and they tell you why the data matches their claim. And so it is a way of thinking and a habit of mind that we're trying to develop in science 5 through 8. And so we are trying to make science happen by supporting our teachers. We are actively pursuing trying to find hands-on materials that they need. For example, that model that you see, one of the instructional coaches came across that at a training, and then we made some, built some, ordered some to make sure our students have those. And then, of course, we do our planning time to make sure all of our activities are aligned and that they are engaging. In the bottom left quadrant, you can see, if you look really close, you see on the television screen, there's a person in a lab at A&M. And then on the tables in our classrooms here at that campus, in that classroom, they were doing the same experiment, and the person at A&M was asking the questions. Why do you think we're putting this in? Why do you think we're doing that? So that we've got this established connection then with A&M and part of our community, bringing them into the classroom because of the technology that you've allowed us to afford and to put into those rooms. And so if you look at these little babies' faces, you see how cute they are? They come to us with that love for science. They come like that. And it is our job to keep them loving science like that and asking those questions and fostering that curiosity and helping encourage that love for science. And so that's our goal in 5 through 8 science. And so thank you for the opportunity to be involved in that.
You've been a huge asset to Bryan ISD for a long time. My kids, which is dating a little bit. I heard this really silly rumor that you might be leaving us, so I'm assuming that's an unfounded silly rumor.
That's unfinished learning.
She announced her retirement last week, but we haven't accepted it. So she doesn't know that there's another step.
But yes, thank you.
And Mr. Stasny, just to piggyback and just to share, Debbie has been with Bryan ISD for 42 years. All of her years in Bryan ISD, starting with Anson Jones Elementary, and many years at Bryan High School, and then here at Central Office in a leadership role for her entire content. And so, big shoes to fill. And so,
it's been an amazing journey, and I thank you for that opportunity.
In talking to kids, and I'll ask them, well, who is your, from Bryan High, who's your favorite teacher? Oh, Miss Richard. Oh, I mean, it's just like 1 out of 2 always say that you're their favorite teacher.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Thank you.
I've got one question, just because both of y'all had it on the presentation when y'all are referring to kind of planning and supporting teachers. Y'all both showed video conferences there. Do y'all feel like the video conferences have helped more teachers be involved in some of those planning sessions, or have created more of a hindrance on some? Just out of curiosity.
Yes and no. I would say our after-school collaboratives, we've seen a better attendance because they have the opportunity, some of them may run home and jump on the Zoom and participate in the PD. So we have seen some increase because of those different opportunities, because it's at different times. PLCs have been done online, but in some cases, if we can maintain the social distancing and follow all the guidelines, we will do that face-to-face as well. Have y'all noticed anything?
Just know when we have some hands-on learning, it is easier to do face-to-face. And so that would be the only hindrance in math, I feel like, is one of those, along with science, where you do have more hands-on learning. So it has caused us to be creative, though. I really think, and you know, I look back on that and think I'm going to regret saying that one day, but really it has brought out some creativity in not only us, but teachers and students. So I think we have, you know, we've kind of learned to deal with it, and things have come out that really
I walked into Mary's office the other day. I said, "What are you doing?" She said, "I'm doing a Jeopardy review game for kids to review online," and it was amazing. So we've had to think out of the box during this time. And yes, Lauren has presented on that very summer school. She didn't say it, but she has.
There's going to be a teacher that's really, really good, that's going to be available pretty soon to do tutoring and.
She has other plans.
She is spoken for 20 hours a week.
She's spoken for.
All right, thank you. Thank you. Okay, real quickly down into 6A city school update. I know there's been some differences. I know we skipped over committee updates from a couple of months ago. It seems like it's been a month ago. So
We'll go ahead and give you an overview for the meeting that we had in February and March, pretty much on the same information. They talked about the 150th anniversary for the city of Bryan, and they've already had the launch for that. It was March the 11th. And November the 13th will be the community Thanksgiving dinner, and it's going to be held at Bryan High in the cafeteria. And they haven't quite worked the details out, but they're going to feed in shifts throughout the day, and we'll have various groups there presenting, singing to the people as they dine. They talked a little bit about which Dr. Whitbeck is going to talk about, the tour of the women realtors. They talked about that happening, and we were excited about them being able to see Bryan ISD and the programs. Really pretty much was about the Midtown Park, the development of it, the development of the super park, where they are. We did give them update on our transportation and maintenance center. We took our design books and gave them opportunity to see what it looks like and what we're hoping that we're going to be getting pretty soon. So they were excited about that. We had a little discussion of the prom, and it was awesome for them to volunteer so many different avenues for us to have prom. And some of the places they were naming, it was like prom at the airport, these places, but they were really trying to help us to find locations to be able to have prom so that our children didn't miss out on that. But Dr. Whitbeck talked about the COVID, the numbers being down, and basically that was it.
all right, intergovernmental.
Intergovernmental was the same. We just talked about the numbers COVID in Bryan. They gave us all the numbers. They talked about places that you can receive the vaccine, the different ones that were at the different locations, and they just talked about how things were going out at the locations that were given the vaccine. So, pretty good meeting.
Superintendent?
Okay, well, and Mr. LeBlanc, if you'll put my slides up. Just thought I'd give you an update as we prepare for the final 6 weeks. You can see that we have jumped another 4%. If you look at the bottom right, you see 89% of all students in Bryan ISD will be learning face-to-face. But if you break that down and you start with elementary at 94, intermediate at 91, middle school at 90, so we've got all our children up through 8th grade at 90% or higher. And then high school is at the 81. But if you notice the 7% there, that 7% are choosing hybrid, which means they're part in and they're part at home. So really we have about 88% of our high school students there all of the time or some of the time. And so we have jumped up again. I think that's another vote of confidence. And just as a reminder, we started August 20th at 55% face-to-face. So quite a journey as we enter into the final stretch of this year. So wanted to share that with you. Leadership Brazos, a group consisting of those that want to get involved in the Bryan College Station community, either in some form of leadership. They want to know more about what's happening. They study city government, they study the schools. And last week we had the opportunity to host them. So I thought I'd just share a few samples of what we showed them. They started at Rudder High School auditorium and they were given some songs by our a cappella choir there. You can see the Rangerettes did some routines for them there in the auditorium. Moving on, they went to they also had the presentation on Odyssey, they had some Q&A, and then they went to the CTEC Center, and I think they were quite impressed there, and you can see there's that robotic arm, and I think didn't we hear earlier that maybe someone told me that one of the people, they were completely impressed that the robotic arm poured them a cup of coffee at the CTEC, and they thought that was the coolest thing. The kids had obviously programmed that. And then you can see automotive there. So they were very impressed. They came to Bryan High to have lunch. And I want you to notice they were, the mariachis, the Viking mariachis sang for them while they played, while they ate. And I want you to see that the culinary arts students made the dinner. And I know to the board, I put it in your board update, a picture of that meal. But it looks like something you would have at Christopher's. And according to Ms. Carabine and others, it tasted just as good. So it was quite something. And so we were really proud. It was a great showing of fine arts and CTE in particular, but all of Bryan ISD. And then the next picture here, I thought you would find interesting because the mariachis also serenaded one of the participants who is a Bryan High grad. Her name is Brandy Kaufman Trujillo. And she graduated from Bryan High, and it was her birthday. So the mariachi sang to her as kind of a culmination of that. So it was exciting showcase for the district, and we're proud to have them. The last thing that I would want to share with you is that we do have our spring survey in swing. Right now, it is open. All of our parents, our employees, they all have this sent directly to them. And then it's open to the community. It's also sent out to community members that are involved in some aspect, but any community member can go on to this link and they can fill out the survey. So we'll be closing those, I believe, Sunday night at midnight. So we'll get those results to you in a few weeks after that.
Thank you. If there's no questions, we'll move on then to the consent agenda.
I move approval of all the items listed on the consent agenda.
Second.
Have a motion by Dr. Harlan, a second by Mrs. Dwayne. All in favor?
Aye.
And that will take us down into business services. Discuss and consider approval of design and development for intermediate number 3.
So thank you for having us tonight. I have two representatives from PBK Architect, who is the architect for intermediate number 3. We have Ron Bailey, who y'all are all pretty familiar with, and as well as Manny Torres. So I'm going to hand it over to them to kind of go through where we are on the design and development of intermediate 3 and entertain any questions or comments y'all have.
Okay, so I'm going to kick it off. Good evening, Ron Bailey again. If you recall, back in December, we presented schematic design to you, and since that time, we have had numerous meetings with department heads, teachers, maintenance, transportation folks, and so on, to further develop the design. And so what we're presenting to you tonight is design development, which by definition is just another level of detail as we go through this process. So, Manny, why don't you kind of take us through this?
Absolutely. Thank you, Ron. Good evening, everyone. So first of all, we want to thank Dr. Whitbeck, Ginger, Paul, everybody from the administration that has sat in numerous meetings. One of the biggest things about design development is in schematic design, we developed a program, confirmed all the room requirements, identified all the boxes that needed to be in the school. Design development is a lot about making the building real, making the design real. So what have we done since then? We've been able to communicate with our engineers. Our engineers are now engineering the building. And a lot of the imagery that you see tonight is going to be very similar to what you saw in schematic design. And that's a good thing. Basically, we've been able to maintain the conceptual design intact. But again, we're now beginning to make the building real. So with that, I'm going to dive in. The first few slides are in your booklet. Just sort of gives you an overview of where we're at in the process. And again, design development is phase number 2 of 5 phases. As we complete design development, which where we're at now, we've had transition into the construction documents. Everyone's familiar with the term the blueprints. That's essentially what we do, even though they're not blue anymore. But the construction documents is exactly that, developing all of the details, and that'll take us through the summer in order to complete that phase. And then, of course, all the bidding, the negotiations with the construction manager, and then eventually kick off the project and construction in the summer. So that's where we're at. Everyone's familiar with the site, existing transportation and maintenance facility with the Bonham School across the street there. A lot of the details, the stats for the design are intact. When the school opens, it's going to be an 800 student capacity. We have master planned, though, the building to be able to grow into an additional 200 students. So it'll reach a maximum capacity should you ever want to expand to that capacity at 1,000 students. When we do that, we make sure that the core, as we mentioned in schematic design, the core being the administration, the library, the cafeteria, the gymnasium, all of those pieces are already master planned for the 1,000 student capacity. So that concept is still intact as we continue to develop the design. So let's dive in. Everyone's familiar generally with the site plan. A couple of things that developed since we last presented in December. We've had numerous meetings with our traffic engineers, and through those reports that they generate, we've been able to go and have some additional coordination with textile. And during those coordination meetings, we've been able to refine exactly what needs to happen in terms of the site plan. One of the major developments, if you go back to the schematic design, we had 2 entrances coming off of north of the site, off of Tabor Road. One of the things that they really push for is consolidating what is essentially the existing entrance and the special education drop-off. So that was one major development. The other thing, not a big change, but one of the things that has developed since we last met as well is the visitor parking loop, the student and parent drop-off loop there. We've been able to confirm exactly in terms of what the stacking requirement is going to be. Again,
that area right there.
Right. All of the work that our traffic engineers are developing help us define exactly what's the length of that loop and so forth. Some of the other elements continue to stay intact. with the staff parking to the rear of the school there. And then we have a sports field just beyond that sort of on the south, sort of on the east side of the site there. We have maintained an entrance off of Seagate Drive there to the east. And then if you notice on this drawing as well, we show where the future expansion would be for those additional classrooms to get us to that additional 200 student capacity. Okay. Part of the master plan as we develop the site is understanding obviously where your existing facilities are for maintenance and transportation. That's what this slide represents. So careful planning. We went through some careful planning to make sure that we can maintain those facilities working and operational as long as possible. We also worked through, as I mentioned, consolidating the drives on the north side of the site there. There, what you see in red would be, again, the parent drop-off, student drop-off. And purple there would be the special ed drop-off. And then the blue would be the primary bus route. And then the entrance off of Seabird Drive would just provide an additional entrance and egress for staff coming in from that side.
And something worth mentioning, the traffic engineers that we've worked with will develop a report that is submitted to the city of Bryan. And then in order to get permitting, we have to comply with what's in the report. So we jumped ahead. We're meeting with them now. We're talking about some of the things they're going to put in the report so that when it does come time to get a permit, we'll already have that taken care of. So we're just trying to stay ahead of the requirements.
Okay. Moving on with the floor plan. One of the things that has developed, right, design development, one of the things that has developed as we refine the design and understanding how the bus loop and all of those changes have impacted our building design is that if you were to put the schematic design floor plan right up against the design development floor plan, you would see that the gymnasiums and the cafeteria are actually mirrored, or they're flip-flop. A couple of things though that are beneficial by that flip-flop, and one of them is, if you notice to the bottom, we're able to develop an area for future expansion. I'm going to go back just a couple of quick slides here. And by doing that mirroring, we actually have been able to stay further away from your existing facilities. So that's going to allow for construction to continue, have minimal impact on your existing facilities, and be able to progress accordingly without having any kind of impact on that. But other than that, the floor plan is relatively intact as we presented in schematic design. Just a lot more refinement. Our meetings get into a lot of detail. We start talking about casework and storage and flipping doors and mirroring doors. And it just gets a tremendous amount of detail. How do we outfit each of the rooms with technology, electrical outlets, and so forth. So there's a lot of detail that's sort of behind all of these pages, which is, again, what design development is all about. And I'm going to run through these enlarged areas in case there's any questions. Anybody have a question?
Where special ed drop-off and pickup is any of that under the carport? Is any of that covered? Or is it open all the way?
There is a canopy.
Yeah, there's a canopy there. It may be a little hard for you to see it, but I'm going to point to this because it's the biggest image.
There may be
there's a
that
drop-off
shows
canopy
that.
right there. And it takes you into the building.
Gotcha.
So that'll be protected.
And that would be true for the drop-off for the bus loop as well as for the parent drop-off.
Yeah.
There would be a covered walkway in order for that to occur. Okay. And I'm going to run through the enlarged relatively quickly, but if there's any questions, by all means, please do not hesitate. So, in general, again,
Excuse me.
yes.
I was just looking at this one where we had a future expansion. Is that to accommodate additional students, or is that just for something else?
It's the actual program was to build for 800 students with the ability of adding 200 more in the future whenever you might need it. So we've actually made sure that is possible, should you ever want to add more classrooms.
Well, I mean, the only reason I ask is because I see the spaces there but it seems to be, you know, kind of all by itself, past obviously the gyms and the dressing rooms and so on. It doesn't seem to be connected in with the, I guess, the main department of the school, you know, and that may be unavoidable.
See, it's tied into the circulation. Of course, there's the main corridor this way, and then you see how the classrooms are wrapped around another secondary corridor there, and another one here, and that's how they would have access to it right here. So it's to a secondary corridor.
I'm excited to see Kickstart on there.
Okay, I'm going to run through these again through an enlargement of the academic wings with 5th grade on the ground floor and 6th grade up on the 2nd floor. Each of those grades divided by an administrative area in the center. 2 science labs to each side of the wings there. So that you see, this is a 5th grade on the ground floor with special ed, again, adjacent to the special ed drop-off loop, just to the right there. The library continues to be the heart of the building, right? As you enter, it's a focal point coming into the front doors, being able to develop some neat ideas in terms of color, learning walls, different things that you see in a few of the renderings as we get through the presentation here. This would be the fine arts area, drama, music, and choir. And then the cafeteria. The cafeteria, we are looking at developing some outdoor possibilities of outdoor dining area just adjacent to the cafeteria there. And this would be continuation of that wing back in the kitchen and the main mechanical. The gymnasiums, if you recall, we described as schematic design, the way the gymnasiums work is you have one, what we'll call a competition field. You want to point to them, Ron, where the bleachers would stack up?
Yeah.
Yes.
Right. Yeah, okay. So, and I don't know if you recall, but we discussed this a couple of times in the past. It helps in saving some square footage that the competition gymnasium, this side, right? It's this side. Yeah, this side. In the event you have games and all, this wall of bleachers actually will fold out over the auxiliary the auxiliary court. Thank you. Court. Goodness, forgot the name of it. The auxiliary court. And so you don't have all that square footage to where the permanent bleachers would take up. So in the event of games and all, then your bleachers would fold out on this side, and then on the other side, go one more, is it? Does it show the one? Yeah, then on the other side, on the other bleachers.
So combined, you've got 1,100 seating capacity in that gymnasium. Okay. Second floor, relatively simple in terms of its layout. We're just talking about the academic wings stacked on top of the first floor wing, with everything stacking, restroom stacking, administrative area stacking. And then, of course, in the center there, in order to create that 2-story media center library volume, right, that would be open to develop.
Always looking for ways to be as efficient as we can cost-wise. Manny had mentioned that we're stacking the restrooms on top, first floor and second floor, so you get that savings of the piping all being in one location.
Okay, and then again, some enlarged there. That's very similar to the first floor with the 2 science labs, classrooms on the other side of that. And then the library over to the bottom. On the exterior, similar to what we were at schematic design, materials that are durable, long-lasting. The performance of the brick is the best wall system that we can put out there. With some accent material, with some stone, very similar in terms of that wall assembly with the brick, but we want to obviously create a little bit of interest, a little bit of prominence to the front entry. So that's exactly what we've done. Some stone elements, some very very simple aluminum walkway covers, the canopies. But then we just dress them up with some brick pilasters and some stone pilasters. So very simple way of creating a little bit more interest and enhancing that walkway system. Learning courtyard, we're excited. This is sort of one of our next steps in terms of developing some ideas in terms of what that learning courtyard could be. Right now, we do sort of have a placeholder for some seating areas, maybe an amphitheater of some sort. But we're going to bring back some ideas and some thoughts on how we could develop different zones for the different learning activities. I mentioned the outdoor dining there to the upper right of the image here. That would be just outside of the cafeteria.
I have a question real quick. Safety-wise, there's not an access to this other than through the building, where someone could come from off campus into this area?
The outside courtyard?
There's a fenced in.
Yeah.
I see the fence.
That fence will have gates on it.
Yeah, we'll have, it will be fenced in, locked doors for security as well as it's surrounded by on the other three sides of the building itself.
Was that your question?
Yeah, I saw the fence and I guess there's a locked gate.
Yeah, there'll be probably three different gate locations, I believe.
2 or 3 different pedestrian gates there with locking.
You know that would be asked, and then that
Oh,
question
yeah.
will be asked.
No,
I think there's at least three.
yeah, security is always a main most important.
Because these
design
kids, if
building.
there is, because that's open area, then I don't know, I mean, it's so long ago. It's like COVID has kind of taken all that over, but we'll come back up about this. We'll be as secure with those kids in there as we can.
Absolutely.
So, since it's a 2-story building, I assume there's elevators, though I'm not sure what the marker is for that. How many elevators are there?
I believe there's one.
There's one, which meets all the handicap accessibility requirements. We have, if I remember right, how many sets of stairs? 4, I believe?
Yeah, so we have, I'm
4
going
sets of
to
stairs.
toggle back to the floor plan real quick.
There we go. Yeah, you can.
So it's tucked away.
One set of stairs there, there, and there. And it's going to be a small little square where that elevator is, but we do have one elevator in there.
Yeah, my concern with one elevator is that if one elevator breaks, then you have disabled kids who can't get to the second floor for their classes.
It's usually not a problem
Is
to
it
have
not?
to have one elevator. I mean, we can always, add an additional
I'm not
elevator.
asking us to spend more money.
Yeah, but it does cost more money for that second elevator.
Can I tell you, we do, obviously we do a lot of schools and there's lots of times where we ask, do we really have to put the, because they just don't get used, right? The times that we considered a second elevator, we just haven't just because of, it's so minimal, minimal use that it
Yeah, I just don't want any kid disadvantaged because of their.
Oh, no, that's not at all. I mean,
We
that
also-
elevator is used only by the kids that need it, not for any other reason, but just strictly for handicap.
Or
accessibility.
supplies that, you can't carry upstairs. I mean, there's uses for it for sure, but.
Absolutely. The special ed department has plans. So like, for example, in an emergency, if an elevator shut down and a child were upstairs and they weren't able to go down the stairs, maybe they used a wheelchair or they needed assistance, they always have a plan for how they're going to get that child downstairs in the event of a fire and the elevator's unusable. So those are the kinds of things, but what you're talking about, I think, is more of a day-to-day,
Well,
if something is
I'm in a
wrong.
building with 3 elevators, kind of side by side. And I can't tell you how many times 1 or 2 of them is not operable, and it's a pretty new building. So it just brought the question when I didn't see one right off the bat.
Are there outside staircases?
There is not.
No, it's all internal.
Building code requires us to essentially protect occupants until they're able to egress the building, right, so they'll be inside that.
Especially at this age.
Yeah, as long as we put in elevators, don't break down. That's on the next page.
We're right behind this fence. Yeah,
Sure.
right there.
You asked about elevators, I'll ask about the roof. We've had a history of excitement on the roofs. The ISD, Mr. Butter, kind of maybe a lot of that. I don't see any equipment there. Is that just because it's not in the picture, or is there going to be equipment on it?
But by design, yeah, we try not to put any equipment up on the roof.
The related question is that I don't know where we are engineering-wise in terms of trying to obviously have a long-term roof that's not complete. But I think fairly, I guess, common knowledge that you have a sloping roof, you're eliminating some of your issues. It's just not practical, it's too expensive.
No, it's a great question. In fact, it sounds crazy, but I actually remember you asking that on Stephen F. Austin, and I went through an explanation. We don't have.
You can explain it.
We don't have flat roofs on our buildings. Now, does it look as if we do when you look at that roof edge? You know, it's a straight line. It appears to be flat, but we do not. We have slopes, internal slopes. The size of the building is going to require some roof drains to go in there, but they're located in such a fashion to where, and detailed in such a way that you won't have problems with, with normal leaking along those lines.
Can we get that right?
Yeah. I just said it publicly. but what I had mentioned, I don't know how many times, is that if you did a section through there, and I mentioned there are slopes on that roof, if somebody liked to skateboard, that's perfect because there's that much slopes that go to roof drains or to the edge of the building. That's how we get our drainage. When you compare that to, can you put a metal roof or a shingle roof like on our houses? The reason that's just not feasible, the size building that we have, if you put the minimum slope starting at the outside of the building, you would end up with several stories worth of attic space up in there. And so that's why we just can't do it that way. This is the next best way of doing it. But at one time in the past, the thought is that a dead flat roof would still drain water. And that was done a long time ago, back in the 50s and the 60s. It obviously didn't work because what the folks that came up with those types of ideas didn't take into account settlement of the building and things like that. So it started causing bird baths on the inside of the building, opposite of what I was talking about putting in slopes. So we're not able to put in a true sloped, like an asphalt shingle roof just because of the size of the building. This is the next best thing, the internal slope.
And Rob, some of the differences between the high points and the low points being the drains, sometimes as much as a couple of feet, right? Because of how long we're running along that line. So,
Well, we certainly would suggest an asphalt. Lots of metal roofs.
Sure.
I know that probably more practical, but they tend to be pretty durable. So again, I'm not promoting pick the kind of roof or anything. That's my question. And obviously we have to rely on y'all for your expertise about the reliability. But as I said, historically, probably a lot of our problems date back to the flat roofs, and that's been a huge issue. And believe me, I've heard it all in the past about, okay, now we're going to fix it with this cool
tapered insulation.
Well, it's going to be covered up with this, I don't know.
Oh,
the cool roofs and stuff.
Single ply.
And this is going to fix the problem, and it didn't fix the problem. And so I've seen a lot over the years, and I just want to make sure we get a long-term, reliable roof, and if there's a better way to do it, and I'm always willing to spend money for getting better quality in terms of durability. Just want to make sure that there's not another idea that might be considerably better that wouldn't break the line.
Right. Now, in fact, I didn't mention the type of roof that's being proposed too. It's called a modified bitumen, a mod bid we call it, and that's a multi-layered where each layer is really very thick, and it's one of the best roofs that you can put down. It's not like the old typical 2, 3, or 4 ply asphalt roofs that we used to put down.
What kind of material is it?
They call it modified bitumen, so it has asphalt in it, and it's got another polymer.
Our fleece back line.
It's about this long as far as the name of it, but it's pretty much tried and true, been around for decades. So that's the type of roof that we're proposing.
We had to move a meeting in here one time.
Yes, we did. There's nothing worse. I was wondering if that was going to come up.
I didn't say it.
Yeah, I was sitting right over the ceiling, almost fell on my head. Yeah. I know that was.
Yeah, I was about right there between Dr. Harlan and
I do remember that.
Yeah, Mr. Aldrich brought some more things up relevantly.
Yeah.
Oh, we don't need to bring up bad memories.
No, and actually the reasoning for that was the contractor that was putting it in had not finished out the roof drains, and so we got caught with the rain and water came right straight in. So, yeah.
You ever bring guys in from Houston that night, didn't you?
Well, our guys did, and demanded the subcontractor come out, which they did as well, and they fixed it that night. Well, the next morning, 2 or 3 in the morning. But, yeah. Okay.
Very good. All right, continuing on, exterior view of the library. Again, with the library being the heart of the building, special element, 2-story, we wanted to accentuate that in terms of the exterior as well. So a little bit of play with some stone, different materials, a little bit of metal panel. Again, these are all tried and tested materials. So here's an image of the interior of the library, and there you see the windows stacking along the perimeter, providing some nice natural light as well. Here's another view of the library. View of the cafeteria.
Are those windows going to be tinted enough for the direction that they're facing so you're not blinded when you're in there?
Yeah, all exterior windows would be insulated, which means that it would have the center layer with 2 panes.
And they're tempered. Not tempered,
That's
tinted.
the word I was trying to.
They are tempered as well, but tinted. But I'll tell you, we're doing one other thing as well. We have shading devices that will come down when you want to really darken that. And,
Oh, that was her question.
okay, and that will be electrically controlled, not manual, electrically controlled. So
So you can
you'll-
use it for assemblies and
Yes.
things on the
Yeah.
screen up there.
Presentations, right.
Presentations.
Yeah, we fight challenges. The energy codes require a certain amount of natural light throughout the building, and this room is no different. So we want to and have to put in glazing, but in order for you to use it, different ways throughout the year or the day, we'll put in those other types of things like the automatic shades that come down and so on.
The shades internal or external?
Internal.
Internal.
The inside.
I guess it's not practical to do that external.
Um,
Obviously, that's keeping the heat out.
Yeah, well, also, these are, you can roll up and down, so you wouldn't want to put them outside, they would get torn up. But, no, they're inside. They would drop down from the ceiling, so you don't even know they're there until you eat them.
Okay. So the interior of the cafeteria. If you notice the banding along the perimeter that's got the blue and the gray and the white, right? Those are acoustical panels. So a lot of the elements that you see in terms of splashes of color, treatment on the wall, it's doing 2 purposes. One of them is to add some interest to the roof, but it's an acoustical panel to help us control some of that sound that's bouncing off the walls for presentation and so forth. And then we are some concepts of the main corridor there. We're beginning to develop some ideas in terms of how we might do graphics throughout the building. This is just a placeholder, but as we develop a graphics concept, we'll bring that and review that with the team and develop several options of color and themes and ideas and look forward to bringing that in the future. Just a couple more shots of the interior, different views. And then I'm going to ask you if you could touch the center of that. I think you probably have a better shot of playing that video than I do.
Will that start?
A little bit lower. There you go.
Oh, okay.
Good, I was hoping you were going to do that.
Sunset and Bryan.
So that just kind of gives you an idea of what it's like to walk up to the front door and so on.
Can we go back to
I really like the outdoor courtyard area, and one of the things we had asked for last time is some access from the library media room out to, and so I see that there's full doors there. So I really like it.
And we had just a couple more slides about scheduling. If it'll,
back to, back to the PDF.
They're really looking on the screen.
there we go. Okay. So that kind of shows you where we are now. Design development approval tonight, March 29th. If the board does vote to allow us to move forward, we go into the next phase, which is construction documents. Also, just a note, Dramala Construction, the construction manager at risk, has been attending these meetings with us. They're helping us with pricing and so on. And we anticipate this project being finished. And Dr. Whitbeck asks me this at least once a month. Can we do it by 2022? I wish we could, but no, it'll be ready for fall of 2023. One more. Okay. So this is the money set aside in the bond issue. Construction cost $45,900,000 and change. Like all projects, we're pushing that, trying to get as much square footage as we can. As we've had our departmental meetings, there's been a couple departments needing a little bit more square footage. It does test our budget, and so we're officially a little bit over right now, but nothing to be alarming about. Although I would like to point out, if you've looked on the news, you probably are already aware of this, but we're in a national, it's nationwide, we're seeing escalation in construction cost due to the pandemic. Of course, when manufacturing companies had to shut down, that created an automatic backlog for materials. We are seeing escalation in the structural steel, for example, and it's literally going up daily right now. Wood is a real priority, and that includes any type of wood products, or so on. So Dramala is taking that into account, but I just wanted to mention it to you that we're having to deal with that as everybody else is that wants to build a building. So we'll bring that information back to you as we know, but we do understand the amount of money that's available for this project, and we know that we have to get it within that number, so we're working diligently to be sure that happens. And I think with that, unless there's any additional questions, we're happy to answer.
I move approval of the design development for intermediate school number 3 as presented. Second.
I have a motion by Mrs. Nguyen, a second by Ms. Waller. All in favor?
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I did notice my doors. I appreciate it.
Good, okay.
And I think next up, we're going to be talking about the fencing at Merrill Green Stadium.
So thank you. So you've heard all about the crown jewel for the 2020 bond project tonight. So we're going to talk about a couple of other ones that we're going to start moving forward on. Tonight we're bringing forward, asking for approval to approve the architect for work on the Merrill Green fencing and priority renovation projects. And this is part of the, we did a request for qualifications for architects and received, I believe, about 14 submissions for that. Evaluated them with a group of Bryan ISD people. I believe Mr. Buckner and Ms. Carabiner were on that committee as well. Came forward with the top 6 and interviewed those 6. And through that process, this one tonight, we're bringing forward because of the experience that PBK has on this stadium and with the work that they've done before. We're recommending them to move forward with this project, and this is part of the 2020 bond, as I said.
I move approval of the contract to PBK Architects for the new fencing and renovations at Merrill Green Stadium as presented.
Second.
Motion by Dr. Harland, a second by Dr. Davis. All in favor?
Aye.
And next up is discussion and consider approval of architect services for classroom addition project and priority renovations at Rudder High School.
Yes, sir, and this is another one of the 2020 bond projects. And again, from the same RFQ for architects and based on professional qualifications and performance in the field and previous school experience, this firm rose to the top in this particular item. Upon completion of the interviews, it's our recommendation that the classroom addition project and priority renovations that were determined in the facility condition assessment be completed by Corrigan Architects, and this project also will be funded out of the 2020 bond.
I move approval of the contract for the Rudder High School classroom addition project to Corrigan Architects as presented.
Second.
A motion by Ms. Waller, a second by Dr. Harland. All in favor?
Aye.
And next up is consideration and possible action to select a delivery method of providing the best value for the Performing Arts Center upgrades.
Yes, sir, and this is the phase 2 of the project for the Performing Arts Center. We previously had brought the other item in there. They're working on completing that phase as we speak. Board policy requires that for any project over $50,000, that the delivery or contract method be determined if it's other than competitive sealed proposal. In this particular instance, we're recommending the board consider approving the method of interlocal agreement or purchasing co-op. One of the main reasons for this project is it's a very specialized area, and virtually all of the companies that do this type of work are on co-ops or on agreements that we can use for this process and tap into the prices that have already been competitively bid. And so that is allowed, and it helps move the project forward and still getting us the best value for it all.
So how is that, just very briefly, I'm somewhat familiar with it, how this works as far as providing us with the best, I guess, value or best price for the work?
Right, so essentially, there's many purchasing co-ops and local agreements that we can be members of or be allowed to use. And so through that process, the co-op will actually competitively bid those items for us, and then those prices stand for a specified period of time as a contract. So it's just similar to if we actually did the bidding ourselves, but they've already done that work for us, and that's part of our benefit of being a member of that co-op.
But they're taking our specific project and doing that?
Well, normally how they will bid it is it's bid on a certain particular item, and like I said, these are all, it's a very specialized in the performing arts center world, so I mean they can bid each different component of a job in that area, and then their hourly rates and those kind of things are all competitively bid as well. And so then we can just request quotes from them for our particular project, and it's similar to if we bid it ourselves on that, because they've already competitively bid it through the co-op.
I move approval that the board select the interlocal purchasing cooperative method of procurement of construction services as providing the best value for the Performing Arts Center upgrade project, and authorize the superintendent or designee to take all action for the procurement of such services pursuant to statute and board policy.
I second.
That's a long one. That's what I do.
A motion by Dr. Harlan, a second by Mrs. Dwayne, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
This is practice.
All right, next up, 8A5, consider a resolution setting the payment parameters for the closing of school on February 15th through 19th of 2021.
Yes, sir, thank you. In accordance with policy DDA local, when we have a weather event or an emergency closure, similar to what we did on February 15th through the 19th, due to inclement weather or some other situation that happens that causes us to be closed. And then it's determined that those days would not be made up. In this case, TDA granted waivers for districts that were impacted by this storm. And so those days would not be made up. So in that situation, it calls for a resolution by the board to determine the payments to be made for employees who would suffer a loss if those days were not made up during the calendar year. And since we will not make up the instructional days, then days will not be made up. The one difference in this situation that we are bringing forward tonight, of course, the policy lays out the normal payment and what differentiated payment there should be for people. What we're bringing forward tonight is asking you to consider an additional payment for the group that was out and about during this storm, sliding around on the ice and taking into account the extraordinary and unprecedented nature of this event. The mitigation of mainly it was the maintenance group that y'all saw here at the last meeting, but the mitigation efforts of that staff saved the district a lot of time, a lot of interruption to our instructional time, and a lot of money as well. They ignored the dangerous conditions, treacherous travel, went across the district and checked on all of our facilities, and actually made some really quick decisions on things that really helped us a lot. And the one example that I would point to is Houston Elementary. As you may remember, we had some issues there. We did actually end up having to go remote, learning for 2 days on that. But the maintenance, by checking that early on, as we started having the rolling blackouts and the other things that were not anticipated at that time, by going in and checking that, we found the sprinkler heads laying on the floor. We were able to actually contract with that fire sprinkler company by Tuesday. I don't know if you remember, the storm actually started Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. But Monday and Tuesday were the really bad days. We were actually able to contract with that fire sprinkler company by noon on Tuesday and have them under contract. And there's a limited number of companies that can do that. So, everybody, around the state is scrambling to try to get them in line. But we had them already contracted by noon on Tuesday. They were able to start getting parts, sprinkler heads, etc., things that were needed in order to be able to get that project started, get it worked through. They worked through the weekend. And actually, I believe they were done by Sunday, but Monday and Tuesday we needed a couple of days to clean up a couple of other things. But through that process, we believe that probably saved us. That campus, I'm pretty safe to say, I don't think would have opened the rest of this year. The disruption to that would have been that drastic, we feel. There are many areas, even around our local area, that have campuses or facilities that are not functional and probably will not be back up until then. There were several others that could have been in bad shape. I don't know if they would have been in that bad a shape, but Jones, Crockett, SFA, Rudder, Bryan High, Milo, all of them sustained fairly minor damage. I know Jones and another one were actually touch and go yet Sunday night if we were going to be able to get heat for the building to be able to come back on that Monday, but we were. And so it's in our opinion, these mitigation efforts save the district a lot. They're also been praised by our insurance adjusters that are working the claim with us. And these extra expenditures, if approved by y'all tonight, would be eligible for part of the insurance renewal. Will also be added to the FEMA disaster declaration request for public assistance on that. We've already submitted most of that. I think it's roughly about $750,000 is where we are on that, which would include all the labor paid to date on that. But just feel like they took what could have been a real difficult situation. Maybe we could have considered it probably a disaster for our district, and made it what really became more of a minor inconvenience. And feel that warrants some extra. What is in the memo actually attached to the resolution is for those gentlemen to receive be one time the regular pay for the hours that they physically worked. And that would be, there's about, I think there was 26 or 27 in here the other day. There's about 30 of them. There's about 7 or 8 of them that worked for just about most of the week, somewhere between 30 and 40 plus hours. There's another 22 that worked from a half a day to maybe a little over 2 days, somewhere in that range. So, but that would be our recommendation for what they did above and beyond what their job actually called for in that
Kevin,
situation.
From what I understand, and we did give them some praise. They came and we greeted them and let them know how much, talking about our maintenance, Mike Coleman and his crew. These are former students, fathers, grandfathers of our students, and they didn't have to all do what they did, and it was dangerous. And they left their own houses that had leaks, and they came to work on the schools that they went to school with. I mean, the schools that they went to school in, and then the schools that their children are in. So I think a lot of those men really had their heart in what they did those days. I also understand that the fire marshal here was very impressed by how quickly we went in, particularly at Sam Houston, and got that sprinkler system taken care of. And even on the state level, we've gotten compliments to our district for how fast, and some amazement by other districts on just how fast we got things taken care of. And it's because those men jumped in their vehicles and went to the schools that they love and care about and took control. And therefore, does anybody else have a question? Or I move approval of the attached resolution that sets the perimeters for payment for the closing of school on February 15th through the 19th, 2021.
Second.
I have a motion by Ms. Waller and a second by Ms. Binford and Dr. Harland. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Kevin.
All right, and that will take us down to teaching and learning, where first up is consider approval of the District of Innovation Local Innovation Plan renewal.
Good evening, everyone. I know it's late, so my part will be brief because fortunately I was in the boardroom on January 19th giving you an overview of this process and a timeline. So this is the final stage tonight where I ask you to consider approval. Oh, sorry, you're not Vanna, I am. Okay, quick reminder, what is District of Innovation? Again, I shared this back in January, but just a high-level overview. This was passed into law in 2015, and of course Bryan ISD pursued it at that time and became a District of Innovation. The whole purpose behind it, and many districts across the state did leverage this opportunity, was to access flexibility and innovation. It's all embedded in the Texas Education Code and policy-driven. There are eligibility requirements to become a District of Innovation. We satisfied those elements 5 years ago, and we continue to satisfy them and are eligible for the renewal process. There were very strict parameters for the initial eligibility, and they remained, and we did, again, pursue those. Just to remind you, though, this is not a rubber stamp. We had to do every one of these things before I could come in here tonight. So the journey actually began back in December of 2020, and again on January 14th, when I took this information to our District Educational Improvement Committee. That's the one we refer to as the DEIC. It's a comprehensive group of people. It's school district employees, it's parents, it's community members. And I provided them an update about the renewal process, the role in the process, and the timeline was shared. They were able to ask questions. I gave them the local innovation plan, took them to our website, showed all the historical elements of this from the 5-year ago journey. In January of 2021, I reconvened what we call the Local Innovation Committee. This is a requirement. I found everyone that was still in the district and available. Anyone who may have departed, I backfilled their positions so that we had adequate campus and department representation. The committee looked at the local innovation plan, and I explained this process for renewal, and they determined that day that they wanted to recommend renewal for the process. So another requirement was that you have to post the plan on the district website for at least 30 days for public review and feedback. So we did that. We satisfied the posting and took it down on February 25th, 2021. I figure you may ask, so I'll just go ahead and tell you there was only one comment posted, and it was favorable. So we figured there wasn't any opposition, so that was a good thing. Everyone seemed to understand what we were doing. That occurred in February. On March 11th, this was another requirement. We held a public DEIC meeting to consider approval of the plan, and we reviewed all the elements again, went through the timeline, all the parameters set forth by the state, and on that day, we received unanimous approval to renew the plan. So the final leg in this journey is here tonight to seek School Board of Trustees approval, and if you should approve it tonight, then we will submit this information to the Texas Education Agency, and then our district will maintain its District of Innovation status for another 5 years unless something changes with the legislators. And just a quick reminder, the 4 components that are in the current plan that we are asking you to let us continue with the next plan is the first day of school instruction. We are allowed to let our calendar committee weigh in and deviate from the state's mandate, which is terribly important to all school districts in the state, so we want to keep that in the plan. The teacher certification, this allows us to waive that requirement, particular to our CTE teachers and our world language teachers. We want to be able to hire teachers that bring in that experience but not necessarily have the teaching certification. And then the other two is the minimum attendance, it's the 90% rule. And again, this means that a student who may have proven mastery of a content, passed their end of course exams or their STAR test, met all the mastery requirements, but maybe they didn't satisfy the attendance piece. This allows a committee to meet and consider that and allow the student to meet promotion criteria or for us to award credit. Very important, and most school districts are certainly using that. And then the final one is the class size waiver. We're actually not doing this right now, especially in light of the pandemic. We don't want to put more kids than necessary in a classroom, but we want to leave this in our plan should the committee ever want to revisit it, and it would give us that opportunity. But the notion behind it was a pilot used in the kindergarten program at Crockett, in which you can put more than 22 students in a classroom, but they put more teachers than required to actually lower the ratio, and that was to allow them to differentiate instruction and pull small groups into play. So again, it's not in use, but we want to leave it there should we ever want to revisit the concept. So I know I just talked very quickly, but you heard all this on January 19th. Any questions for me or feedback tonight?
I move approval of the local innovation plan as presented in order to renew the District of Innovation status for Bryan ISD.
Second.
I have a motion by Mrs. Twin, a second by Dr. Harland. All in favor?
Aye. All right, no pressure, but you got to get us on track here.
Thank you.
No pressure.
I honestly thought when you said, okay, go, I was waiting for Fran to jump in and go, I make a motion, and you were talking to Matthew about the slides.
Great.
Good evening. I am back again for more teacher incentive allotment, but I hope to bring you the conclusion of where we are tonight and ask for your approval of our application, which is due to EA on April 15th. The good news is, much like Mrs. Carabine, you've already heard the vast majority of this presentation, so I can do the last 2 months in 3 slides or less, and then I'll be giving you information, okay? So we know that the purpose of this statute and of this program is to do 3 things. Reward our highest effective teachers, our highly effective teachers. We're going to retain them in the classroom, specifically in the classroom. And we're going to recruit others to the teaching profession because they have that same opportunity to earn up to a 6-figure salary by staying in the classroom. So that's the purpose, and rewarding those teachers for the great work that they do, helping students grow, grow being the key phrase there, right? So the district's plan right now has a 2-tiered approach. In year 1, that's the blue year that you see on your screen, teachers have 3 methods of designation. Well, sort of. The first one is that all teachers are eligible through the National Board Certification process. That makes them immediately eligible for a recognized designation, regardless of the district's plan. Okay, that's statewide. Teachers in Group A, who are under the MAP student growth measure, are eligible for data collection next year. Teachers in Group B are piloting their data collection measures next year to see if they can make them statistically sound enough to be included in the next year application. And then by the second year, the green year, we hope that every teacher has a viable pathway under the district's designation system to be put forth for a designation should they so earn that rating. That does not come easily. Those Group B growth measures are taking quite a bit of time to develop and analyze. We have at least 10 different teacher subcommittees right now working on that with directors and coordinators, and they're putting in some tremendous work to design what that could be for next year. And working with a number of other districts who are doing similar processes. So what we've decided thus far as a committee, and we've brought this forward to you, those Group A teachers that can earn a designation in year 1, looking at data collection, are ELA, math, and science teachers up through 12th grade. We know that our Group B teachers are all teachers not in those areas, CTE, self-contained special education, social studies, world languages, that sort of group. Okay, but they will be piloting their measures next year during data collection. We know that we've chosen the circle for pre-K. Math, of course, for the grade levels we've decided. We said that T-tests would specify to domains 2 and 3 only, because we want to have a strong calibration of those indicators. Those are all required data elements to go to Texas Tech. We want to make sure that our data is reliable and calibrated across the district. The committee voted not to include any other components in year 1. We wanted to keep it very straightforward, as understandable as possible, and understanding that this is a complex system. and that the weighting for those data points would be 40% t-test and 60% student growth, which I'm going to speak to here in just a minute. The board took action at the beginning of March on the distribution of funds, 10% at the district level for MAP, PD, and associated professional learning to support teachers in attaining designation, including prepping them for national board certification. And then 90% would go straight to the designated teacher, minus the TRS and benefits, so that it was TRS eligible for those teachers. So that's the work of the committee thus far. So what's new and different is how we calculate the scores. This was the last piece to set in place to make sure everybody was understanding, well, how do I get calculated in terms of what constitutes a master's level performance, right? What does that mean exactly? So when we talk to TEA and all the presentations we've been in, they've set forth minimum performance averages. They say, in general, of all the data coming in across the state of Texas, teachers who are designated at recognized attain this level on t-test and this level of student growth. And those are the numbers you see on the screen in front of you. So a recognized teacher is scoring at a minimum of 3.7 across averaging all of the dimensions in domains 2 and 3. And they're obtaining at least 55% student growth. Okay? They could be up or down from there, but on average across the state, if they have attained a designation, that's typically what a recognized teacher looks like across the state. So these markers are important because on the application, TEA asks, how have you aligned your district designation system to these performance minimums? It's not a hard and fast rule, but it should statistically line up similarly to these measures. So there are two approaches. Some districts are taking a rank order approach where they simply calculate the score, how much was the teacher's t-test, how much was the teacher's student growth. For us, we multiply it by 0.4 for 40%, 0.6 for 60% for student growth, get a number, and we put the teachers in rank order, and the top X would be masters, exemplary, and then recognized, and everyone has to hit that minimum, right? Others are setting clear markers for teachers, saying if you're in this range, then you've obtained the master's level designation. You've performed at those performance levels, and I'm going to go back a slide. You hit it about 70% of your students meeting or exceeding growth, and you were at a 4.5 on your t-test. You've hit the master's markers. So regardless of the rank order that you're in, you've obtained the minimum expectations and above even for that master's designation. Therefore, you are designated as master's level. When we talked to the committee about this, they all felt very strongly that there should be clearly established targets for teachers. We did not want to create a system that caused teachers to compete with one another, but rather one that facilitated collaboration for the students' benefit. And so it was very important that we set clear markers that would benefit all children and all teachers. So here's what we've done. This is a scenario. We have a teacher. These are their dimensions for domains 2 and 3, their ratings on a 5-point scale. Their average is a 4.13. Now, if you think back just a moment ago to these performance standards, a 4.13 would pretty much put them just above that exemplary rating for t-test, right? 3.9 was exemplary. And then we move forward and we look at their student growth measure. What we've done is we've taken the percent growth, and Dr. Morris has done a nice model for us that aligns to those performance standards that you saw from TEA. And if you're at a 62%, you receive 4.05 points. And as you go back through that, the 55% is at a 3.67. You'll think, and you'll notice that that's similar to the recognized t-test performance of a 3.7. So they're pretty much aligned all the way through so that it's aligned to those TEA performance standards. So if you hit those ranges, you're also still in a recognized area there or an exemplary area there. The final calculation takes place and you multiply by the weights, 40% and 60% being student growth. And then once again, you can see that those ratings right there, 3.68 to 3.91, very similar to those TEA performance standards, but again with the weights of the student growth being 60%, keeps us in alignment with those TEA standards, but sets clearly defined targets for teachers as to what to achieve and what to strive for to obtain those designations. So the committee supported the calculation methodology you see on the screen there and asked that we move forward with this method, which again clearly establishes those targets and creates an atmosphere of collaboration versus competition. So some other things, let me pause there. Are there any questions over the calculation before I move on to any other parameters? Ma'am?
I have one.
Yes.
where it says overall score designation, the rating,
Ranges.
ranges. Either you're designated or you're not, right? There's no I mean, so as long as it's above a minimum.
As long as it's in that range, you're recognized.
So as long as it's,
As long as your overall score is between 3.68 and 3.91, you would receive a recognized designation.
so is there a differentiation between recognized, exemplary, and master for teachers with, yes?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. That overall score would put them in each of those thresholds. It's up to a maximum of 5 points. And so whichever range they topped out in. Now, the nice thing about this model is it could facilitate such that the student growth was quite high. It was in the high master's range. Their t-test was slightly below the master's range, but the overall score put them just over that tipping point of master's. We would designate them as masters. So whatever their final outcome is, it's not a you must hit X and Y and also B. It's a your final score is your final score. If you're in that range, that's where we're going to nominate you.
Right.
So it gives flexibility within the system for some of those situations.
Well, and I'm glad we chose not to do that whole ranking thing because that would be terrible for climate.
Yes.
That would be awful. So thank you. I would vote no on that.
Thank you. That was not the kind of atmosphere Dr. Whitbeck or any of us wanted to create.
I've been in a department that did that, and it's not good for climate. Competition's not good.
No, especially when we think about the mission of our organization to serve students, and if we're not fully transparent and collaborative, we can't possibly be doing that well. So,
Well, it's like children who, you know, you don't want them to say, well, there's only going to be 2 A's given on the test. No, you want them all to study, you want them all to work hard, and that more kids can accomplish, you know, high levels. Same concept.
That, I was gonna ask, so I can think of a bunch of teachers that could sit in mastery level, and, Mr. Richard, you know what? And so, we're not gonna have a cap, are we? I mean,
yeah.
okay.
Good question. So TEA does not put a cap. They say in general across the state it's the top third of teachers. It could be that a particular campus has more than a third of their teachers designated, and certainly over time, as TIA allows us to recruit those highly effective teachers with designations to Bryan ISD, we could have a disproportionately positive number of designated teachers. And that's what we were actually hoping to create. Right. Good question, Mrs. Waller. I won't get too much into the weeds here, but there were a number of other parameters that the committee reviewed, including which students would count for a teacher in terms of their growth, and it has to do with the amount of time the student is actually with the teacher. They're there at the beginning of the year, they're there at the middle of the year, and they're at the end of the year. Then we would reasonably assume that student would count for that teacher's growth measure. But we will have an appeals process. There are good reasons why a teacher may appeal that. Perhaps the child wasn't there at the beginning of the year and came the week after we administered the MAP test, but came with scores from a prior district. The teacher would probably advocate to count that student since they've invested in them throughout the year. So really good reasons why we would do so. We talked a lot about self-contained first grade, second grade, kindergarten teachers and which growth measures count for them. And it's actually the average because all of that learning is important, right? So if you teach both math and reading, we're going to average your growth scores there. We talked about minimum student requirements, number of scores. Because we do have some classrooms with small numbers due to special needs populations, we did set this at a pretty low number of 5 tests. It doesn't mean 5 students. You could have 3 kids, 3 math, and 3 reading scores. That would count. But there will also be a process for appeals there if you don't meet that minimum number of 5 because of the circumstances of your student population that you serve. So a number of things that were transpired there. Next steps are for professional growth for teachers and for us to focus on very specifically how will we support teachers in obtaining a designation. The first step is to make sure they understand what the designation system is. That's up and coming in the next week. And then start working on t-test calibration, coaching pertaining to t-tests, helping them understand math. As I mentioned earlier, we are very fortunate that NWEA is going to allow us to administer the first math assessment this spring. That will help us, and also looking at the summer learning differences over the time from May to the beginning of the year to see, did students maintain? Was there a summer slide for reading in particular student groups? What do we need to do to help them get back on track? And where are they exactly? So that will be very helpful. Professional learning teams, obviously, the reading academies coming up will help our reading teachers in terms of shoring up their skill sets and their toolbox for reading support for students. We will be working on national board certification with a number of teachers, making sure it's clear to them how they go through that process. We'll be partnering with Region 6 and then also offering some other opportunities that we've been contacted about from outside of that entity. In general, the timeline goes on and on and on, and there's quite a bit to it. But right now, we're seeking your consideration for the application. It's due to TEA on April 15th, like I mentioned earlier. There will still be a few adjustments to that as we go through various edits and revisions to it. But the purpose this evening is the general parameters that we've shared will be present in that application as you've seen them this evening, with the change of some wording and some specifics that are sometimes necessary for TEA. And then, like I said, first week of April, faculty presentations, we submit the application. Teachers are given a survey from Texas Tech, and we start working on the fine details of a handbook to explain all of this. What questions can I answer for you?
Some of this may have already been answered, and I missed it. I assume that the actual money is going to depend on the state and how many teachers qualify. Is that right?
The state has set the markers, and they are set for the year based on their free and reduced lunch status. And so I think one of the higher numbers that we saw was any master's level designation, I think at Jones and at Neal, any master's level designated teacher would receive an additional $28,000 annually for 5 years.
Depends on the school.
It does, socioeconomic status, and then also the rural status. We don't have that factor, so it's just socioeconomic for us.
And that's master, but the other categories?
Exemplary and recognized. Recognized is approximately 6,000 to 9,000, and then up to about 18,000, and up to about 28,000. So those are set at the state level based on the SCS population and the rural status.
Well, I move approval of the teacher incentive allotment application as presented and authorize administrators to make necessary adjustments based on new information and feedback from TEA.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Stasny, a second by Mrs. Waller. All in favor?
Thank you.
Motion carries, and that will move us straight into professional contracts.
Good evening. I'm here tonight to present to you on behalf of the HR department and supervisors, principals, anybody who's a supervisor for employees that are professional, their contract. We've provided to you a list of the people that I'm recommending today, but this includes teachers, nurses, or registered nurses, library media specialists, on up to coordinators, assistant directors. As you recall, last time I was in here, I presented to you principals and directors. This group is also including our assistant principals and counselors as well.
I move approval of the recommendation of the superintendent to renew and issue non-Chapter 21 contracts, probationary contracts, and term contracts for the 2021-2022 school year for professional staff.
Second.
Have a motion by Mrs. Dwayne, a second by Dr. Harland. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you. Sorry you had to wait so long for that. Quick roll section.
This won't be as fun as Carol's, but I come to you hopefully to adopt the 115 policy from TASB. So we'll go through some of these together, and please stop me if you guys have any questions. So we'll start with BF, local. This is a policy on policies. So this is basically to say that we adopt local policies, but we do not adopt legal policies, and you can see that that has also been inserted into that language. DIA. We've updated the recommended language here at the top that addresses the prohibition against harassment. So this includes the current Supreme Court decision that is more inclusive for everyone to consider what is harassment against transgender and homosexuality is included. And this is as recent as June 15th of 2020, and that's included in DIA local. On D and D, this is regarding attendance at professional developments and the absences. This will be deleted from our policies and addressed in our staff and employee handbook. EI local is, they've changed some rewording here. And we've covered this in FD local, so we will no longer need EI local, and it is covered in FD. And this is a process of awarding credits. FB local has updated the language to designate a coordinator for ADA in 504, just like we've done for Title IX, so it was just including a coordinator for 504. FEB local removes the stipulation that attendance has to be taken second and fifth period and allows our superintendent, Dr. Whitbeck, to determine what that time may be. And that will be addressed in our handbook, and so this policy will be deleted. FFG local, we have deleted the exhibit and included the items that were in the exhibit in the actual policy, and we'll be deleting that exhibit.
So say that again, because this one is the abuse and neglect one, right, and the duty to report?
Yes, yes. And so that was in our exhibit, and so that's been placed inside of the policy and not in the exhibit anymore.
So it's in the real policy?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
And FFG is the exhibit that was deleted and placed in the policy.
It's a lot more spelled out now.
Because I read through it, I just didn't know what we were doing with it.
I think it was more difficult to have to go to the exhibit and then go to the policy back and forth rather than just have it inside of the policy. For FFH, we just updated the language in the note at the beginning to include dating violence and sexual harassment rather than just the word harassment. FMF local will be addressed in our student handbook, and this is regarding student activities, contests, and competitions. For F&G local, we just want to make sure that it's brought to your attention that it's 90 calendar days and not 90 business days. And that's if you have been removed from the district property and you want to bring forth a complaint, you have 90 calendar days and not 90 business days. And that is the same for GF local as well. This was a very pleasant policy update considering what it could have been. So I think it was great for a jam-packed board meeting tonight. If you guys have any questions, now is a good time. Otherwise, those are the local policies that we're seeking to adopt.
And I did ask Dr. Whitbeck a question earlier today on this one, just asking that the pieces that are being deleted and we say could go somewhere else, do we have the plan to move that? And
Yes.
she told me we do, so.
Yes, either in the student handbook or the employee handbook.
Yeah. I just didn't want to lose the things that
Right.
I know. I move approval of TASB policy update 115 as presented.
Second.
I have a motion by Dr. Harlan and a second by Dr. Davis. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Motion.
Thank you.
And the board will now convene in closed session to discuss the following items as allowed by Texas Government Code Chapter 551.072, deliberations about real property, and 551.074 personnel matters. No voting will take place in the closed meeting. Any action the board wishes to take as a result of discussion in closed session will take place after the board reconvenes in the open meeting. It is now 8:46, and we are planning to adjourn to the back room. Before we leave, there is a board has reconvened at 9:12 out of closed session. No action was taken in closed session. If there is no motions to take up, so if there's no further comment, then we are adjourned.
Thank you.